Welcome to EPL Insights for Gameweek 36 of the Premier League season, with their data always provided by Infogol. Gareth Wheeler, Andrew Beasley with you again. A full slate of games this weekend. No midweek fixtures as the focus then turned to European football, but we're back with the domestic game in the Premier League this weekend. Now, we ended last week's podcast hoping that there were some goals on the weekend. I think that Andrew and I both thought there was a really good chance for goals. Well, what was a bank holiday in the UK on Monday turned into just making money Monday for me, as 21 goals were scored in 3 games that all crushed the over. So if you backed us in those games, congratulations, good listening, well done. And let's hope for more more performances like that for this upcoming week. What did you think of last game week? Monday really was the exclamation point on it all. Lots of goals and some upsets as well.
Yeah, it was a strange week. It's the sort of week you see this time of the season where games can go a little bit haywire and crazy things can happen. I mean, those 3 games Monday, each team that won actually lost the XG. I mean, Fulham beat Leicester. That was 1.7 to 3.3 on the XG. Brighton lost 5-1 to Everton, but that was 3.4 to 3.0 on the XG. And Forest beat Southampton 4-3. That was 2.8 to 3.6. So, I mean, with those kind of underlying numbers, you could have had any kind of outcome, really. And obviously what we got, particularly in the first 2 games, was an unlikely one. I mean, all 3 teams that lost each had 5 clear-cut chances. They could have easily scored more than they did, particularly Brighton. But I mean, that's often the way with them, unfortunately, for them at home. So, yeah, I mean, crazy games and some results there that I don't think anyone would have seen coming. Most obviously, Everton's win at Brighton.
It was a good week if you played straight-up winners. Last week as well. Arsenal beating Newcastle. They were great in that game. Closed at plus 207 on Pinnacle, an implied probability of 32.6. West Ham outright win against Manchester United. You can thank David De Gea if you were holding a West Ham ticket, plus 264, an implied probability of 27.5. Chelsea actually won a game and scored 3 goals in the process. They closed at plus 111 as well, an applied probability of 47.4. I tipped Wolves to rebound after just an embarrassing effort against Brighton the week before. They beat the rival Aston Villa. Finally, that bubble burst to a certain degree. Maybe they're a little bit on the bounce back this week. And Spurs beat Palace. So the outright wins last week, Andrew, really left a mark. And especially wins, not to mention the wins at the bottom of the table, with Everton, Nottingham Forest, and West Ham all picking up valuable points at this end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, losing at Fulham was a bad result for Leicester anyway, but then obviously with Everton picking up an unexpected thumping win of Brighton, it just sort of made it even worse for them. So, yeah, everything's getting really compressed down there. I mean, it sort of was anyway, but if you sort of accept that Southampton are gone, you've then got 4 teams between 30 and 33 points. Could still be any 2 from 4. I certainly fear for Leeds and Leicester, who are in the bottom 3 at the moment. But things can turn quickly. Nobody would have seen Everton winning 5-1 at Brighton. Perhaps one of those teams has a surprising result this weekend. Both got difficult-looking home games, but as we say this time of the season, funny things do happen.
Leicester conceded 5 in that game. They look so good from an attacking perspective at times, but just defensively, no matter who their goalkeeper is, no matter who's playing in the back 4, the errors are there. They were plus 1,600 to be relegated on Pinnacle preseason, now at minus 225. And taking a look at the futures market on Pinnacle, Leeds at minus 275, Leicester City minus 225, Nottingham Forest plus 140, and Everton plus 250. How do you look at those 4 teams? Because 2 of them will be going down.
Yeah, well, we spoke a bit about it in the last show, didn't we? And I sort of mentioned that Nottingham Forest would be potentially a good option for the drop, and then obviously they went and won, beat the XG to beat Southampton. But I think they'll still find it very difficult, Forest, because of obviously the games they've got remaining. I think they had to beat Southampton and they did, but that doesn't mean that their remaining fixtures are going to be any easier. Particularly, their only home game is against Arsenal, and they've got to go to Palace and Chelsea. I guess in their favour is the fact that those sides don't have anything particularly to play for. But with Forest having been so bad on the road, they can't sort of take anything for granted. So I think Forest have drifted since I tipped them to go down. But I think it's still a very real possibility that they could go. And obviously Everton, Man City this weekend. Obviously we will talk about that, but you'd have to assume they'll probably lose. So they could be right back in it come the end of this weekend.
I put in a play for Nottingham Forest to go down months ago at plus 140. I still think it could be worth a play. Both Leeds and Leicester City play West Ham, who are still competing in European football right now. We'll see. I think that Everton, famous final words, I think they're too good to go down, but perhaps that might not be the case. But plus 140, that's the only one that jumps out for me. And Manchester United continues to stumble. Liverpool plus 170. The way that they're running right now, is that worth a play for you to finish in the top four?
It's still not for me. I mean, I think it's, Liverpool are doing their best to sort of keep this interesting. But they're still quite a long way.
United are doing their part as well.
Yes, that is true. But obviously Newcastle and Manchester United will both be favourites for their games this weekend, which we'll talk about in a minute. They both play before Liverpool as well. So for instance, if Newcastle win, they'll be 6 points ahead of Liverpool. Liverpool only having 3 to play. So I think, if Newcastle and Manchester United win this weekend, then it as close to ends it without actually ending it, I think. So, stranger things have happened and Liverpool are certainly in form, but I just think there's too few games left for them to make up the gap. So I wouldn't be backing Liverpool at this point, but who knows? I mean, obviously if Newcastle and United drop points, then it will carry on. But I still expect those two teams to get there.
Yeah, for Manchester United, 3 of their final 4 games are at home, and Old Trafford has absolutely been a fortress. And congratulations to anyone that made an Everton play. It was the upset of the week, scoring 5 goals against Brighton. It closed at plus 752 on Pinnacle. So hopefully that will provide some inspiration for the podcast this week to go on and dig deep and find a big plus play that we might share for you here. No pressure, Andrew Beasley. So let's dig into it. Our feature 5, and we'll go rapid fire for the entire game week 36 calendar. And let's start off with a Saturday fixture. It's Aston Villa and Tottenham Hotspur. Villa lost 1-0 to Wolves in a game they conceded early, but really outplayed Wolves for the duration of that game. They've played to the under 2.5 in 5 of 6. But Villa have won their last 5 games at home and smashed the opponent in terms of XG, according to Infogol, in each and every one of those 5 wins. Spurs, a 1-0 victory over Crystal Palace. Guess who? Harry Kane, another goal. They've actually played over 2.5 in 5 of their last 6 games, the exception being last weekend. Both teams to score have played in 8 of 9. Spurs are winless in their last 6 away from home, in the process conceding 4 to Liverpool, 6 at Newcastle, and draws against the giants that are Everton, Southampton, and Wolves. Yikes. Head-to-head, Villa beat Spurs this season 2-0 in the reverse fixture, but they've gone over the 2.5 total in 5 of 7. So Villa and Spurs, what do you make of this game? Spurs, clinging on to their hopes of European football. Does Villa put a dent into any of those aspirations this weekend?
Yeah, I think they possibly will. I mean, they will view this as an opportunity to draw level with Tottenham on 57 points. A 3-goal win for Villa. All right, that's perhaps a bit of a big ask, but that would put them ahead on goal difference as well. So, there's motivation for Villa here if they're chasing a European spot. I think this is one of those games that's quite tough to call because you've got Villa very resolute, very hard to beat at home. As you say, they've won their last 5 at home to 0, deservedly so, pretty much on the expected goals. I mean, Bournemouth were the best with 0.96 in those last 5 games at Villa Park. They kept Newcastle to 0.67 expected goals. So if they can do that to them, you'd have to think they can do that to Tottenham. And obviously with Tottenham, you just don't really know what you're going to get. I mean, I think we tipped goals last weekend when they played Crystal Palace and it ended up 1-0. But clearly on the road, I mean, Tottenham have been all over the place. they've been 3 goals down inside 15 minutes in their last 2 away games. And obviously they sort of recovered better at Liverpool than they did at Newcastle. But clearly they don't do too well away from home, and they haven't been doing very well away from home. So I think, my money would probably be on Villa, but I'm not sure I have a strong play in this one. So I still think it's quite hard to call. Tottenham can pull a performance out of the bag now and again. So I'm thinking maybe Villa on the handicap, minus 0.25 is currently minus 100. But I'm not really sure. And I think probably unders on the goals, under 2.75 at minus 110. But I'm really not sure. This is one that I don't have a real strong feeling for.
I look at this as being one that I think that Aston Villa can just win this game outright. Aston Villa at plus 129 is my play. I like the trends, 5 straight wins at home, 6 games without a win away for Spurs. Villa have gradually improved their home form over the course of the season, weren't very good. Seems like a lifetime ago under Steven Gerrard. Unai Emery is a top manager. Ryan Mason maybe become one at some point, someday. He's not there yet. No. That provides for me a decisive advantage in Aston Villa's favor, and a team that already beat Spurs this year 2-0. I think it's a good matchup. I think that it's a team that remains lively, a real threat in attack. Emi Buendia has been excellent. Ollie Watkins still in really good form. It's just a question of how many goals they'll score against Spurs this weekend and whether it'll be enough. I don't mind looking at the total. I don't mind some of the other plays, but I think Aston Villa, an outright win at plus 129 is good enough for me. So let's hope that trend that kind of took place last week of outright winners really standing out in terms of the winning plays. Hopefully that carries over and continues into this week. But for me, Villa's a better team, a side on better form, much more reliable, better coach. They're at home. Pick them to win, plus 129. So anything else to add on this?
No, I mean, when you lay it out like that, better team, better manager, home advantage. I mean, yeah, it does make a lot of sense, certainly.
Sometimes, we could dig into the data, and you're right. Some of the data, basically shows on InfoGoal that it might be a relatively even match. It could. I think that context at this stage of the season is important to weigh in, and just having a feel for some of these games and some of these teams right now. And Spurs, they are the epitome of unreliable. So I just can't back them going away and beating a very good team that's been on good form, despite what was for me, Andrew, a predictable loss to Wolves last weekend. Maybe not a loss, but it was predictable that Wolves would bounce back and play much better. There's a rivalry game, so I could see how that happened. So I think they'll get back on track this weekend. Let's move on. And it is Wolves who are traveling to Old Trafford to take on Manchester United. This is the statistic of the week for Manchester United. This is the first time since September they haven't had a midweek fixture. They've been playing weekend, midweek, weekend since September. Now, take away the international windows, of course, because no one was playing. This is just regular domestic and European and cup football because they've gone so deep in every competition. They played 57 games, and that just shows you the fixture buildup. So a week off, and we'll see if they can respond after back-to-back 1-0 losses. Manchester United's problem right now, but yeah, sure, the blunder by David De Gea and the 1-0 loss to West Ham, we get it. But they're only 9th in the Premier League in goals, and they've just scored once over the course of their last 3 Premier League games, and now they're just a point better than Liverpool with a game in hand. The good news is that 3 of their final 4 games are at home, including this one, a place they haven't lost since their first home match of the season. They played to under 2.5 in 4 of their last 5 games. For Wolves, they bounced back from a 6-0 loss to a 1-0 win over Aston Villa. 40 points, they're in 13th. Safety is ensured, but they still regularly play to the under. 5 of their last 7, they've been under 2.5. They haven't won in their last 6 away, and they've just scored 4 goals away from home over that span. 11 points overall in 17 away games is just 18th in away points, and 12 goals scored away from home is 19th in the Premier League. Head-to-head, United won on New Year's Eve. Marcus Rashford scored the goal. It was a 1-0 final, and these two sides have played to the under in 8 of 9. That under trend is one that stands out, yet the total set at 3 for this one. Perhaps you could explain this to me. What am I missing here, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm really not sure about that one. I mean, I was looking at the score lines from the last 6 meetings of these teams, and basically it's 0-1, 0-1, 0-1, 1-2, 1-0, 0-0 from most recent going backwards. I think there have been a lot of games between Wolves and Man United in recent years. I think they've played in the Cup sometimes as well. Always the same thing: 1-0, 0-0, 1-1. These sorts of score lines. So quite why the line is set at 3, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm assuming it's probably because United have been very good at home and Wolves have been very bad away. As you say, United unbeaten in 15 at home. They've had the 4th best record in the division. Wolves pretty poor on the road, but they don't give up too many goals. So I mean, I'm looking at the under 3 at -118 as a fairly obvious play in this one. United, as you say, sort of struggling to score at the moment, but they've not been giving up many goals. I mean, the 2 1-0 defeats, an error by De Gea and a penalty in the 90 whatever minute it was at Brighton. I mean, that's 2 games that very easily could have been 0-0. Let's be honest. And so, with that in mind, I mean, I also quite like the look of Wolves at +1.25 on the handicap at +103. 5 of their 10 away defeats this season have been by a single goal. As we say, the last 5 meetings have been 1-goal wins for somebody and a 0-0, and the last 5 at Old Trafford have all been 1-goal wins or draws. So, I mean, giving Wolves over a goal in the handicap appeals to me, as bad as they've been away from home, because they know how to keep things tight, and United are struggling. But I think, that's a separate thing. I mean, I think the unders has to be the way to go, really.
Yeah. You have to follow the trend here with the data as well as the way that these two sides play one another. It's regularly an under 3 at -118. I just can't turn that down. I'd kick myself if I didn't make that play. The only sticking point is United coming off actual rest. Last week was difficult. They actually stayed down in Brighton and just traveled up to West Ham to play on match day. It's been a quick turnaround. They look absolutely exhausted. So, playing at home, having those days off, does that inspire a bounce back? Perhaps. But when I think bounce back, I'm thinking maybe a 2-0. Like I'm not thinking of like a 4-1, watch that goes out and happens. But it's nothing would suggest that it would happen. Wolves, their attacking struggles have been well documented. And for Manchester United, over the course of the season, other than Marcus Rashford, where are the reliable goals coming from? It's not Anthony. It certainly isn't Martial or Weghorst. Bruno drops deeper and deeper to get involved in the play. He's not necessarily the goal-scoring threat that he was when he first joined Manchester United. Sancho certainly has had a very poor season. I just don't know where the goals are coming from in this United side. So the under is a logical play for me. And you're right, on the handicap, it's probably worth a punt with Wolves if you're getting anything over a goal on the handicap as well. That makes a lot of sense to me, Andrew. Any trepidation, any reluctance to making that play? Can you see anything that you've seen from Wolves or Manchester United make you think that we could see some goals here?
Not particularly. I mean, the only thing, obviously, Wolves did lose 6-0 recently at Brighton, but of course that probably acted as a wake-up call rather than a sort of, they're going to lose 6-0 every week now. It's sort of a somewhat freak result that they will have responded to. I can't find the figures now. I was just trying to find them, but I did see earlier about Manchester United underperforming their expected goals. And when you go through their players, obviously,
it's by about 7, Andrew. It's by about 7 goals on the season, I believe.
It is, and Rashford's obviously having a good season. Everybody's aware of that. But so many of the other guys are like sort of a goal, 2 goals below. Eriksen is, Anthony is, Fernandes is, and obviously these are guys who take a lot of their shots beyond Rashford. So with all those guys underperforming, it sort of explains why they're 7 goals below and why they don't score all that many goals for the chances they create sometimes. So no, I mean with those guys likely to play. As you say, the week's rest maybe helps them, but I think we're so deep into the season that a week when you've got 57 games played, I think you said, how much difference is that going to make? Possibly some, but it's a long way into the season for it to make too much difference. So I can't look past a low-scoring game here. So I think that's got to be the way to go.
All right, let's move on. It's Brentford and West Ham this weekend. Brentford coming off a 1-0 loss at Liverpool. I thought they played okay over the course of the game, but nowhere near enough in the attacking third. Just a 0.29 XG according to Infogol in that game. Brentford have now played to the under in 4 of 5, 31 points at home. They've been a good home side, 32 goals scored, 18 conceded. And in terms of like a plus, an expected goal differential of plus 17. A plus 9.3 expected goal differential, correcting myself, just backs up how good that they've been in terms of their home form over the course of the season. They played 17 home games. That's where that number came from. Thank you very much to my notes to confusing me. West Ham, a deserved 1-0 victory over Manchester United, despite the De Gea gaff. They played very well organized, played some good football, 1.85 XG in that game as well. It was a big win for West Ham, considering both Forest and Everton also both won on the weekend. So 37 points. It's just about enough to stay up. They haven't mathematically got enough, but it looks to be enough. They play AZ Alkmaar on Thursday in the Conference League first leg semifinal. And then they play next Thursday as well. So I wonder how much that will play or alter David Moyes' approach to this one. Moyes says you never can take it for granted playing European football. They'll go into this competition with the clear intent to go on and win it. They finished the season by playing both Leeds and Leicester City as well. So a draw really in either one of those games will just about do the trick. So this one this weekend, not essential, not incredibly vital for West Ham. They played over the 2.5 goal total in 6 of 7. Head-to-head, these two sides have played twice this season. Brentford won 2-0, but West Ham won at Brentford 1-0 in the FA Cup, and they played to under the 2.5 total in 4 of their last 5. Are you looking at the context here of European football potentially weighing in on the way that you feel about this game, Andrew?
Yeah, I think so, because West Ham are basically safe, not mathematical, but I think they're available at plus 25,005 to go down. So I think that says everything about the likelihood of them going down. And obviously they've got this European semi-final. We're recording this before they play that, so it will be interesting to see what happens there. They're home to Alkmaar, as we say, on Thursday night. So obviously that's gonna be relevant. I think there could be a game where they ring the changes because of that. We saw the recent game they had at Manchester City prior to the United game, where David Moyes rested a few of his key players, and I think he could probably do likewise here. Particularly if Leeds lose on Saturday, this game is on Sunday. If Leeds lose, then Leeds can't catch West Ham, and then they're just down to Leicester possibly catching West Ham. And as you say, they play each other anyway. So I think this is one that favours Brentford for that reason, in that West Ham will almost certainly take their eye off the ball unless there's a huge result in the game on Thursday night, a huge win or a huge defeat. Most likely it'll be fairly close. They'll want to rest players for this one as a result. It is one, I sort of feel like maybe it could end up in a draw. Brentford have had 14 draws, the most of any team, and I think a draw probably suits West Ham. But a draw is always a difficult prediction because you never sort of know when they're going to come along. And as we say, a lot of definite results have been happening lately. Wins, not too many draws. The unders, probably worth a look. West Ham are bottom of the Premier League for games with over 2.5 goals. So the unders at minus 108. A close game, I think, is probably going to happen with Brentford not much to play for, and West Ham with their eye off the ball, possibly. It's another one where I don't really have a strong play, but I think Brentford at plus 111 probably looks quite decent, just because they've been very strong at home, and as we say, West Ham will have other things on their mind.
Yeah, I like the Brentford outright win at plus 111 for all those documented reasons. Brentford's been a great home play at plus money over the course of the season, and I think that this number, it's maybe you're getting a little bit more juice than I thought, just because of the context with West Ham playing on Thursday and the focus. And if West Ham is to rotate, Kurt Zuma's still out through injury. It's at the back. And is this team good enough defensively on the balance of it to keep Brentford for scoring? Brentford at Liverpool, it was frustrating watching them play in the attacking third, but their processes were okay. I actually kind of have a slight lean to the over 2.5 at minus 104 as well in this game. I think this is a game right for Tony and company to get back on track, playing at home against another London side. who might be a little bit weary or have their eye cast at a different competition now because of the win last weekend. If West Ham didn't beat United last weekend, I think I'd feel a lot different about this game. But based on the context, I like Brentford at home at plus 111. Give me that all day long. So.
Yeah, definitely. And something else I've just thought of. I mean, obviously, if Brentford were to go, say, 2 goals up in terms of the overs and unders, I mean, if Brentford were to go 2 goals up, how much are West Ham going to put in to get back into this game? I'm not sure they are. So then does it become 3-0, 4-0? Doesn't really make too much difference to West Ham in that regard. So as much as I feel sort of the overs make sense if Brentford get ahead early, I think.
Yeah. Based on the context, not the data. So we'll allow you to balance that out and where you end up falling this weekend for the Brentford West Ham fixture. Let's move it forward to Everton and Manchester City. It was a shock result of the weekend. Everton going to Brighton and winning that game 4-1. They scored in the first minute. Dwight McNeil with the brace. He was great. Decore was awesome on the day as well. He scored a brace as well. They ended up losing the XG battle, as Andrew documented earlier, 3.44 to 2.96. According to InfoGoal, but still 2.96. It's a big number. In fact, it's the third time in the last 5 games with Everton that they've actually had an XG of over 2.45. So they're creating really good goal scoring chances. They're 17th, 2 points better than both Leicester City and Leeds. They played to over 2.5 in 4 of 5, no clean sheets in 3, and both teams to score has cashed in 4 of 5. For Manchester City, a 2-1 victory over Leeds last weekend, which looked to be a stroll in the park. Gundogan missed a penalty, could have gone 3-0. Then Rodrigo scored. You're like, Leeds aren't going to steal this. They had like 80% possession in the game. Then they went to Real Madrid and picked up a nondescript 1-1 draw in the first leg of the Champions League semifinal. I think they had only a 0.29 XG in that game, according to InfoGoal, against Real Madrid. So not the City that we've seen in the Premier League, but good news for them. They're back playing in the Premier League this weekend. They're still a point better with a game in hand on Arsenal. A little bit of a tricky way to end this season. So maybe it's not a fait accompli that City go on to win the Premier League title. They play Chelsea. Can last week's win inspire them to bigger and better things? I don't know. But then they have to go to Brighton and Brentford to finish the season. They played over 2 in terms of expected goals in their last 4 Premier League games. They haven't lost in 21 games in all competitions. They've gone over the 2.5 total in 5 of 6, and both teams to score in 4 of 5 in all competitions. Head to head, I'm not sure if you remember this, but they played to a 1-1 draw at the Etihad earlier this season. It was a 2.32 XG, just a 0.09 in City's favor in that game. But I believe Damari Gray scored a second half equalizer to share the points. City haven't lost in 12 in this matchup. Everton, no clean sheets, coincidentally, in 12 games. City has scored first in 10 of 10 in these fixtures as well. So what do you make here? Can Everton go back-to-back weeks, springing a shock result? Or does City really put some keen focus on this game, understanding that they're playing at home next week against Real Madrid? Winner goes to the Champions League final.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a very different level of matchup, but it's sort of similar to the Brentford West Ham issue, whereby you've got a team with a massive European game acting as something of a distraction. I mean, obviously it was not as big a shock as Everton winning so heavily at Brighton, but I think we all thought Manchester City would brush Leeds United aside by quite a lot more than 2-1. I mean, and it didn't happen. So it leaves me not quite sure what to play on this one, because I'm certainly confident that Manchester City will win. But how much will the Real Madrid factor play into that? I think City will be favourites to go through in that, having got the 1-1 draw yesterday as we record this. But clearly, there's still a lot of work to be done in that game. And I think, I sort of looked at City minus 1.5 at plus 106. I could certainly be tempted by that. But then you look at their record. They've had 3 1-0s and a 1-1 at bottom half sides this season. They don't always blow these teams away. And obviously Everton are coming back into it on the back of a very big win. Will be full of confidence. We saw them beat Arsenal at home earlier in this season. So yeah, it's a difficult one to know how to play. I think City will win, but quite what happens beyond that, I'm not sure. The only other one I thought probably is a winner total goals, Manchester City and over 2.5 plus 101. I think that could easily happen because I can't see Everton keeping them at bay to any real extent. But not really sure about this one. How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm going to follow a couple trends based upon what we've seen. Everton are creating chances and are continuing to be a plucky, difficult side to play against. Yeah, they've laid an egg a couple times, but that happens with these bottom of the table sides. We also know that Manchester City are the top team in this league. All the numbers dictate that. XG, expected goal differential, home away from home. It doesn't matter where they play. They're the top team in the league. But what City does on a regular basis is continues to concede cheap goals. They did so against Leeds. The game looked well in hand. I mean, look at over recent weeks against vastly inferior competition that they've conceded goals against. So I like both teams to score and City to win at plus 228. It is just piecing together like what the trends for both teams have been. City go out and score enough goals to win, but they end up conceding on a week-to-week basis as well. I think Everton can go and score against City. Perhaps it's a garbage time goal. If I'm Pep and City in this game, I want this game done and dusted as quick as possible. I might have some rotation. It doesn't matter. You bring in Rico Lewis. You bring it like they have more than enough good players to come in, but perhaps maybe a little bit less cohesion means they're a little bit more vulnerable at the back. Alvarez leading the line. I'm fine with that, like these sorts of things. And they're still good enough to go on and score and win this game. So both teams to score in City win at plus 228 is my play. Have I convinced you or are you still a little bit on the fence?
No, absolutely. That sounds like a good play to me. I mean, as you say, City don't keep many clean sheets. I think they've got the same number as Wolves, maybe one more than Brentford, things like that. They don't have their defensive record overall is good, but there just aren't as many clean sheets as you'd think. They often, 2-1s and 3-1s and 4-1s and things like that. So, that's not a bad shout, certainly.
All right. And finally, if you're looking for fireworks on the weekend, perhaps this is the game to watch. It's Arsenal and Brighton. Arsenal won at Newcastle, played really well in a 2-0 victory. Back-to-back wins over Chelsea and Newcastle. And they've scored 2 or more goals. It's incredible. In 9 of their last 10 games and 31 goals scored overall over the course of their last 10 games. Kids, I'm no mathematician, but that's 3.1 goals per game over their last 10. It's wild. And they've scored in each and every one of them. They played to over 2.5 in 7 of 8. Both teams to score has played in 8 of 9. They've been the first to score in 8 of 10 and the first half winner in 8 of 10. The defensive prowess, I mean, that's gone out the window, but this team from an attacking perspective is as good as it gets right now in the Premier League. Brighton, speaking about a very good attack, well, it was kind of the defensive frailties that were front and center against Everton. They came off coming off a clean sheet at home against Manchester United, perhaps riding a little bit too high because they conceded early and often in a 5-1 home loss to Everton. Matters got worse with Sully March doing his hamstring, so he's going to be out for this game as well. Brighton, much like Arsenal, have played to the over 2.34 in terms of XG in their last 5 games. It's just incredible the chances they're creating. And against Everton, however, it was the biggest expected goals against they've given up in 2023. The biggest since New Year's Eve when they played Arsenal and lost in that game. Brighton have played over 2.5 in 5 of 7. They've only played 33 games, so they still have 2 in hand on Spurs and are only 2 points behind them, and have 2 games in hand on Liverpool and are 7 points behind them. Head-to-head, that aforementioned New Year's Eve game, Arsenal won it. 4-2 was the final, but Brighton did knock Arsenal out of the EFL Cup in November. It was a 3-1 final in that game. No clean sheets for either in their last 3 meetings. So you know where I'm casting my eye, Andrew. I'm not predictable. I'm looking at the goals here and the total. Are you looking there? Or are you looking elsewhere?
No, I think it has to be goals. I think everything is sort of pointing in that direction. I mean, I think this is the game of the weekend, at least from an entertainment perspective. Maybe not the biggest game of the weekend in terms of what's on the line necessarily, but I think in terms of entertainment, this is going to be the game of the weekend, or it certainly should be. I think it's quite funny that, they're 36 points apart in the league table, yet the Infogol table has them as the second and third best teams. So that they're sort of more closely matched than perhaps the league table would suggest. And as you say, Brighton have got a good record there. I mean, they've won 3 of their last 4 visits, all by a 2-1 or 3-1 scoreline. But as we've said, you've got to be looking at the goals. I mean, 13 of Arsenal's 17 home games have paid out on over 3.5 goals, including the last 7. You've got Brighton, who've had a 6-0 win and a 5-1 loss in the last few weeks. I mean, we said this last week similarly about Tottenham and Crystal Palace, and it ended up 1-0. You know, they're teams who've had a lot of goals in their games, but this just feels like a game where there's going to be, it could end any score. It could be 4-3 Arsenal, it could be 4-1 Brighton. I don't think anything like that would surprise me that much. So I mean, the line is set at 3, but even over 3 at -110, I'm certainly looking at. And also both teams to score and over 2.5 goals, that's -116. Again, I would be. I don't know who's going to win, but I'm confident there will be a lot of goals.
So get that over 3 at -110 if you want that play, because that number is going to go one direction. So jump on now. When you're listening to this, I'm not sure where it's at. Like, I'd much rather play over 3 than both teams to score and over 2.5 at -116. You're getting a little bit more juice, but I'd rather play over 3. That's the only way that I can see this thing going. Add the context to this game. Arsenal have to win. They have to win. And Brighton, really a draw does them no good. They have to win if they want to push on for potentially Europa League football. So 2 teams that are inspired to go out and win the game. 2 teams that are wide open oftentimes at the back. 2 teams that play outstanding, like elite level attacking football in terms of chance creation. Over 3, lock it in at -110. I actually got it this morning at -109 and locked in my play. So good luck hitting that button on Pinnacle as quickly as you can. Anything else there?
Well, the only thing I was going to add as well, I mean, we don't expect Manchester City to not beat Everton, but I mean, obviously Arsenal will need to win either way. But I mean, if Man City do drop points at Everton earlier in the day, I mean, the atmosphere will be crazy at the Emirates as well, on top of everything else. So I mean, yeah, I'm just expecting chaos, basically, right. Whatever happens.
Right. Bring on the chaos and bring on the goals. And then Andrew's happy, I'm happy, and hopefully you're happy as well. Let's go rapid fire for the final games of the weekend. Leeds against Newcastle. What do you see playing out here?
Well, I was looking up the reverse fixture and saw that it was 0-0 on New Year's Eve. And even
I took a haircut on that one, Andrew. Sorry to interrupt. Like, that was one of those fixtures, like, this has to be going to the over, and then it plays out in a goalless draw. Sorry to interrupt.
No, but you're right. I mean, it was one of those games. I just thought it was funny that it was on New Year's Eve as recently as that, and it was 3 Leeds managers ago that game took place. But wow. Yeah, I mean, it really should have been on the overs. I mean, it was 0-0 as we say, but Newcastle had 7 clear-cut chances in that game, and it's the only example of a team having at least that many in the Premier League this season and not scoring at least twice. Teams with that many normally score 3 or more. Obviously, there's the Allardyce factor to take account of. You know, did a pretty good job of shutting down Manchester City. They'll have the home crowd on their side. But I think I'm probably looking at Newcastle to win and over 2.5 goals, because I think they're in good goal scoring form. Obviously, drew a blank against Arsenal, but that's one of the toughest games that they'll have. So I think Newcastle to win and over 2.5 goals. Just trying to find it now. It was plus 148 earlier. And it's plus 141. So again, it's heading in that direction. So yeah, that's my pick for this one.
Don't know what it is. If this is a compliment to Allardyce, or really it's something I just need to look at myself in the mirror and say, what are you thinking? That Allardyce factor. I'm just like, I don't know. It's in my head. Andrew, I watched last weekend against Manchester City. They just sat back. Allardyce was okay. It's not running around manic like Jesse Marsh football. It wasn't somewhere in between for Gracia. It was very pronounced. And I think that kind of approach can be effective for a team like Leeds, who do have players that can go on and score goals. Like they do. They have zero defensive discipline. They're all over the shop. But perhaps this different style can ask a question or two out of this Newcastle side. I'm not advocating a Leeds United win here. I looked at the handicap. I'm not even touching that. But I'm not betting Newcastle either in this game. I do look at the total. And Leeds hasn't had a clean sheet in 12. They've played to over the 2.5 total in 9 of 10, and both teams to score in 10 of 10. Newcastle, no clean sheets in 7. They've gone over 2.5 in 6 of 7, and both teams to score has played in 5 of 7. So based on that, I'm going both teams to score at over 2.5 at plus 104. That's it. Maybe it'll be 2-1 Leeds. Maybe it'll be 2-1. I don't know. Am I an absolute fool to let Sam Allardyce get in my head? Because he has, and I fully admit it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what they'll do. As you say, the Allardyce factor is always something to be taken account of in a Premier League match. But I just look at the table and see that it's the best defence in the league against the worst defence in the league, and I'm not sure how much Allardyce can do to sort of arrest that fact. So no, I'm happy with my play, but I'm not sort of 100% confident that Newcastle will win, because it is an interesting situation.
Ellen Road will be bumping on the weekend as well. Both teams to score the over. Let's go. Bring on the goals. Let that trend continue. Southampton just about going down, done and dusted as they take on Fulham. What do you say here?
Yeah, I mean, Southampton are gone. If not officially, then it's only a matter of time. Fulham playing very well, playing with freedom. The last away game was at Anfield, only lost 1-0 to a soft penalty, as I think we discussed in the last show or one of our recent shows. There's been a lot of games lately. So I just think Fulham at plus 152. I think, they're a very good team. Not perhaps as good as their results suggest, but certainly better than Southampton. So I would be looking at Fulham to win. And again, the goals over 2.5 at minus 108, always over with Fulham is our general rule. It didn't work for the Liverpool game, but then obviously they came back with a 5-3 on Monday. So back in form on that front. So yeah, I'm thinking Fulham to win, and I'm expecting goals.
I think over might be the play here, Andrew, based upon that. So that can't keep a clean sheet. They haven't done it in 9. Fulham haven't had a clean sheet in 11. I look at a total of 2.5 at minus 108. I'm thinking, okay. No Bella Kotchup. He's out for Southampton. Ream, Andreas Pereira, and Mitrovic remain out for Fulham. I'm also flirting with the fact sometimes, like when you go down and you're like, okay, we're done. Maybe you come out at home and play a little bit more free. A place where at St. Mary's, they haven't been blessed with anything that resembles decent football this year. Perhaps Southampton can get something out of this game. Fulham are like they're in Tom Cruise control right now. Like Southampton draw no bet at plus 108. I can see this game ending in a draw, potentially get your money back. If not, Southampton, would it shock you if they won this game? No.
No,
Plus money, and you get your money back if you draw. I don't think that's a bad play either.
No, I mean, you're right. They will probably play with freedom. I mean, the one thing that's tipped me towards Fulham, they're third in the sort of mini league of the other 14 teams, as we call them, the non-Big Six teams. They've been the third best in that. And obviously top of that are Newcastle, who are soon going to be considered one of the big teams, I think, if they're not already. So Fulham have been very good in this sort of fixture, and Southampton have been abysmal at home. So that's what's tipped me towards Fulham. But again, it's one where I think goals is probably a stronger play than an outright prediction, just because this could go anyway, really.
I was adding that extra take just for food for thought, by the way. I'm not making that play, but I might end up making that play if it gets a little bit more juice heading into the weekend. Chelsea and Nottingham Forest. Chelsea coming off a win. Nottingham Forest coming off a win coming into this one. So what do you make of it here at Stamford Bridge this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough game to care about, I think, this one, really. I mean, Forest fans certainly will.
Yes.
But I think for the neutral, the season that Chelsea are having, it's sort of hard to sort of drum up any enthusiasm for any of their games, really. I mean, hopefully they should have picked up some confidence. As we say, they did win last time out 3-1 at Bournemouth. And in fairness, as much as they've had a poor season, I mean, they've won 6, drawn 1, lost 1 at home to the teams who are below them, which, suggests that they should they should really win this game. I mean, we've said that a lot about Chelsea, and they've disappointed on a regular basis. I'm looking at both teams to score. Yes is at plus 101. It's happened in the last 4 Forest games and 3 of Chelsea's last 4 games. Forest are still not in great form, but they are at least picking up goals, which they weren't before. Chelsea, who knows what they're going to deliver. So very difficult to know. I think that's the closest I've got to a play, but I'm sort of happy to leave this one alone, to be honest.
Yeah, I love the both teams to score. Good man at plus 101. Why not? Chelsea, no clean sheets in 7. James, Chilwell, Cucurella, like Koulibaly. They have a lot of injuries at the back. I know they have a lot of players, but over the course of, or at least last week, Chelsea went out and actually played a starting 11 with attackers in it. So it shows you this, play 9 or 10 defensive players and just one up top. Lampard has torn that up. Finally, thank goodness. So I think there could be goals in this game. And Forest are just dreadful from a defensive perspective. Just absolutely awful. They even kept a clean sheet in 14. So let's go. Both teams to score a plus 101. I'm happy with it. Just watching that game, you're right. Hard to get up for it unless you're a Forest fan. It's a big game for them. I think they can go there and think they can get something from this game, perhaps, which would go a long way for them. I'm not quite sure that they can. I think that Chelsea will win this game, but the odds just aren't there to make a full Chelsea win play here to make it worthwhile. So both teams to score at plus 101. Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. Palace coming off a loss. Bournemouth coming into this one have won 3 straight away fixtures. What do you make of that? What do you make of this game? It's not sexy either, is it?
No, I mean, there's probably even less riding on this one because I don't think either team has particularly got anything to play for. I mean, one thing I noticed, Roy Hodgson teams are fairly notorious for checking out at the end of the season once they've secured their status. I mean, Palace have got 40, somewhere in the 40s for their points for the last 9 seasons, and they're currently on 40. Liverpool fans often talk about the Roy Hodgson algorithm of playing 3 games, winning 1, drawing 1, losing 1. It's pretty reliable with Roy Hodgson. And it's kind of hard to know what to do this. I mean, if you look at the data, as we've said, it's perhaps not the time of year to rely too heavily on it. But if you look at the data, then it says that the Bournemouth is the way to go, a Bournemouth win. So, I mean, I'm looking at Bournemouth plus 0.5, a plus 102 on the handicap. I think that's a good play because Crystal Palace haven't scored all that many goals, even when they did pick up a little bit initially under Hodgson, but they don't have much to play for. So I think Bournemouth can probably get something and probably take that handicap play. But very tough game to call with nothing much riding on it.
I like it. I'm thinking the exact same way. I might stay away entirely if I do make a play. Bournemouth with the handicap at 0.5 at plus 102. And finally, more Monday Night Football. Perfect game to get into with our resident Liverpool expert, Andrew Beasley. It's Leicester City and Liverpool. It's a big game for Leicester City. Liverpool's away form has improved over the last few weeks. Is it enough to give you a distinct play in this game, Andrew?
No, I don't think so, because it's quite a difficult game to call. Obviously, we don't know at this point quite how motivated Liverpool will be. Top 4 may be all but done. It might be right on the table if Newcastle and United both lose this weekend, as unlikely as that seems. And as well, with the goal line set at over 3.25, I'm expecting probably some goals, but I'm not sure there's going to be that many. So it's a very difficult one to know where to put your play, I think.
Leicester's been a difficult place for Liverpool to go in recent years. Why is that, Andrew?
I'm not sure. I think you could go all the way back to the 1960s. Leicester have always been a bit of a bogey team for Liverpool. It just seems to be one of those things. But Leicester have won the last 2 meetings at Leicester since Liverpool won the league with an emphatic performance 4-0 in 2019-20. But Leicester have won the last 2. It's just always been quite a difficult place for Liverpool for some reason. So it's also, Leicester need the points more than Liverpool, let's be honest. So it will be tough for Liverpool in this one. So, not really sure what to play. Have you got any strong thoughts?
I do. Well, I do have a play in this game. Leicester City haven't had a clean sheet in 16 games. Unreal. Both teams to score have played in 5 of 5. Again, their attacking processes, they're okay. And you're right. I think they're going to come out inspired. James Maddison thinks he was misrepresented in his post-match comments. I think Leicester going to have a right go at Liverpool. I just don't think they can keep the ball out of the back of the net. Liverpool are far too good from an attacking perspective to capitalize on the amateur mistakes that Leicester City continue to make and have made all season long. Both teams to score in over 2.5 and -103 is my play in this game. I could see it 2-1, 1-1. I think it will be fairly competitive based upon the context here. But Leicester City, I've been on them. They're one of my favorite oversides over the course of the season. You're right, at 3.25. It's not a number I want to touch, but over 2.5 and both teams to score, I think that's a relatively decent play in this one. I like to have a little bit more juice, Andrew, a plus number here for having basically the parlay to come through at -103, but I still think that this number, as long as it stays close to even odds, is a playable number for me.
Yeah, no, you make a good case. I think you could well be right. I certainly can't see Leicester keeping a clean sheet. It's just how much they've got the other end and what mistakes have Liverpool got in them, because there's been a lot of mistakes away from home this season. So a sort of typical Liverpool away performance from this season. And well, yeah, it could be anything. 3-2 Leicester, 4-2 Liverpool. I mean, yeah, I think goals is the way to go. I'm just that 3-2-5. It's just, yeah, it's turning me off on that a little bit.
Goals last Monday. Let's hope for goals this upcoming Monday as well to make at least me a very happy man. Good stuff again this week. And you can follow him on Twitter at BaseTuneToRed. You can follow myself at Gareth Wheeler. Odds were correct at the time of recording. And please, as always, gamble responsibly. Enjoy the weekend, Andrew. Top stuff as always. We'll do it again next week.
Yeah, I think next week might be my last one of the season, so we'll hopefully go out on a high with that one.
Well, there's only 2 more weeks to go in the season. So does that mean the triumphant return of Jake Osgathorpe to finish the season with a bang? We'll see. And you, the listener, will have to wait and find out as well. On behalf of Andrew and everyone at Pinnacle, this has been EPL Insights with data provided by Infogol.